If I told my story of the courage and my will to act in spite of my fears, how I survived being buried alive, you probably would not believe your ears. If I told my story of the guts and glory without sugarcoating the facts, it would be obvious without much argument that I've lived a miraculous life if I told my story. Thank you. I grew up in a place called Central Park. It was a very violent neighborhood. There were constantly shootings. There was stealing cars. And I found myself with the wrong crowd. On July 27th, 1990, one of my friends came up and said, "Ian, I got a gun." And we met up with 3 older teens, and we made a plan that we were gonna go downtown Tampa to commit a crime, to commit a robbery. And we approached this couple sitting on a red car. And I said, "It's a jack, give it up." The lady screamed, throw their hands up in the air and scream. I fired. Boom. Shots went off. I threw the gun in some bushes and ran back into the neighborhood. 3 days later, I was caught in a stolen car. The same officer that I seen in Central Park that night, he drew me to the juvenile detention center. And he says, "If there's something else that you want to tell me, just let me know and we'll let it stay in the car." I said, "You know that lady that got shot in downtown Tampa?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm the one who did it." In that moment, I was a child just weighed down by the weight of what I had done. And I confided in this police officer to release this weight off of my chest. For some reason, the public defender said they had a conflict of interest in my case and I was assigned a private attorney. He said, "Listen, I've worked it out with the judge that if you plead guilty, you're gonna get 15 years. At the time, I'm 13 years old. 15 years sound like a life sentence. I haven't even been alive 15 years yet." My mother came up to the side of the jury box where they set the juveniles and separated us from the adults. And she said, "Ian, baby, please plead guilty. Do it for me." She went to her grave regretting that decision because the judge did not give me 15 years. He looked at me and said, "Mr. Manuel, there was a statement made in this courtroom about giving you a second chance. However, sometimes there are no second chances. I sentence you to life." My mother was crushed. She reached over and hugged me, crying. And that was the last time I touched my mother. I was shipped off to prison, Appalachian Correctional Institution. I was given all the responsibilities of an adult, but I was still a child. They couldn't find clothes big enough to fit me. I walk in the grass when they told me to walk on the sidewalk. The officer would yell at me, I would yell back. So they put me in and out of confinement until eventually I was placed in long-term solitary confinement. I was placed in solitary confinement in November of 1992. I would remain in solitary confinement from November 1992 to November 2010, from age 15 until age 33. But in solitary confinement, I started to dive within the depths of myself, and I started to evaluate who I was as a person. I did something that everyone in my dormitory told me I was crazy for doing. I said I was gonna pick up the phone and call the lady I had shot. Even then, I was trying to expand my perception box. There's this voice inside of us that tells us to do certain things. And there's another side that'll come in and say, "No, that's a crazy idea, it'll never work." But I found that every time I've listened to that little voice inside of me, it has led me to some of the most greatest moments in my life. And this is one of them. I'll let her tell you in her own words what happened next.
I got a phone call, and it was a collect call.
You have a collect call from Ian at Appalachian Correctional Institution. Will you accept the charges?
Morbid curiosity, more than anything. I said, I'll accept the charges. He said he was sorry for what he did, and if it wouldn't be too much trouble, I would like to write you. I was getting letters from him from the time he was 14, and I'm reading them, and I'm thinking, the way his sentence structure, his vocabulary, he is way too young to be this articulate. I forgave him because he was a child.
I started becoming my own therapist, and I started putting words to the pain and things that I was feeling. And one of the first poems I wrote was a poem called Genie in the Bottle, and it's about a boy growing up in solitary confinement. I want to share it with you, if you like to hear it. It says, I'm the genie in the bottle the world has forgot. They put me in this abyss and closed up the top. I was a little boy when they did what they did, but time continued to tick, and I'm no longer a kid. My mother is dead, and so is my father. I've been abandoned by family while trapped in this bottle. But I hold on to hope that someone will open the top, answer my prayers, and help me out. Sometimes people pick up the bottle and put their eye to the hole, but instead of compassion, acting different and cold. I suffer sensory deprivation or lost sense of direction. There's no mirror in this bottle for me to see my reflection. They say being lonely and alone are two different definitions, but it's only me in this bottle, so I fit both descriptions. What I need is a friend, someone to extend a hand. It could be as simple as picking up a pen. Someone who cares, accepts me for who I am, my magnetic personality, and my baggage from the past. Someone who helps heal the sorrow, will work on building our tomorrows. Someone who refuses to leave me to die in this bottle. Thank you. And I want to share with you who that someone was that reached into that bottle. That person was Brian Stevenson. I received a letter from him that I want to share with you because this letter changed my life. It says, Dear Mr. Manuel, I am the director of a nonprofit law firm called the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama. We spotted your case. We believe that there may be a chance to reverse a sentence of life imprisonment without parole and wanted to know if you were interested in meeting with us to discuss this possibility. How many of y'all would have been interested at that point? I definitely was.
We started taking cases to the U.S. Supreme Court. When the court ruled that it is unconstitutional to impose these kinds of sentences on children convicted of non-homicides, we went back to the court where Ian's case was pending. We said, you have to give him relief. And Debbie came to court and she said these amazing things about how she doesn't believe that the sentence that Ian received was fair or just, and she supports him being released from jail or prison.
Ian got up and made such a beautiful speech to the judge.
And I was released on November 2016.
It's really hard to step out into the world, particularly now when you're coming out as an adult, but you left the world as a child. You look like an adult, but you have none of the life experiences that adults are supposed to have. Ian had never lived alone before. But having some outside people who are cheering for him, rooting for him, it's obviously made a huge impact. And nobody has played that role more enthusiastically, more lovingly, and with more commitment than Debbie.
I see Ian for who he is. He still has a lot of growing to do, and I don't glorify him, but our relationship, it spans so many years from childhood to adulthood that he's almost like my child.
I want to share this last photo with you guys because it's very meaningful to me. That picture is my first day in prison. That picture right there, May 10th, 1991, is my first day in prison as a 14-year-old child. That picture on the right is me after I expanded my perception box. And you see the difference. I believe we all can expand our perception boxes and change the perception that the world sees us. The world saw me as the worst and the worst and condemned me to die in prison as a child on the left. But I believed in myself that I was more than the worst thing I ever done. And I changed that perception. Thank you.